You are listening to Smart Women's Dating Podcast, episode number 94. Welcome to Smart Women's Dating Podcast. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help smart, independent women attract the love they deeply desire without having to chase or settle. This podcast will give you the mindset tools and insights you need to finally crack the code to your love life. Are you ready? Then let's go! Hey there! You might notice that my voice is completely broken these days. I still have not recovered from my cold. And show must go on, as I said last week. I cannot just leave you ladies hanging out there. I need to publish my episodes. I have promised myself and all my listeners that I'm going to do one episode every week. It doesn't hurt, and I don't have a fever or anything. It just really sounds like I've been out doing all the nightclubs and shouting and screaming and having a lot of fun, but unfortunately, that is not the case. Anyway, I hope you can live with this voice and hear what I have to say today. And also, because of that, I haven't planned a long episode for today, so I decided I'm going to do a listener's Q&A for you. And I have received 3 questions that I'm going to answer in this episode. And the first one is actually a while ago. There was a woman who asked me this question, and she asked, is it okay to date a man who is separated but not legally divorced yet? And I will say the short answer is that depends. That depends, of course. As a general rule, you want to be a little bit careful here. But you can imagine different situations. You can imagine that he could have been separated for several years now, and he could have been moved away from his ex-partner. They could have been living separately for years, and they could even before they separated been sort of emotionally separated. So really done with the relationship and having a more like a roommate or friendship kind of relationship that they have held on to because of the children or something like that. That is potentially a possibility. And then there could, of course, be some legal reasons for why the divorce isn't completed yet, what is holding it back, and that there are maybe some complications that have nothing to do with how they feel and whether they want to stay together. I am not a legal advisor, so I have to put in a disclaimer here. I cannot give you examples of what that could be. I don't have the insight and the visibility of the legal process of a divorce. And I think it's also quite different from country to country and state to state. In some countries, it takes longer to get an official legal divorce than it does in others. And I know that in Denmark, for instance, where I'm from, you can basically get divorced online. You can just go online and tap it. Of course, there's probably some deadlines or some time periods that needs to be met, but I think it's actually quite easy to get divorced if both parties agree. So there could be legal or practical reasons why they are not legally divorced, and they could be separated both emotionally and geographically for a long time. So this you want to find out. You want to find out when he moved away from his ex-partner and what has been going on in those years. And, well, what is his relationship with the ex-partner right now? And you can hear that in how he speaks about her. It could also be another reason that they are not divorced yet. There could be actually one of the parts doesn't really want to go through with the divorce, and the other part has agreed to not do it straight away and give it some time. Maybe because they are not really 100% sure that they want to move forward with the divorce. It's really important to understand that if they are only separated and not yet divorced because one of them is against the divorce or they are not really 100% sure they want to do it, then there's a problem in dating this guy, at least if you're looking for long-term and committed relationship. So you want to have a discussion, you want to find out where does he stand, And the difficult part of this is, of course, that you don't want this to take up a lot of space on a first date or in the early phases of dating. It's not very cool to spend time talking about his ex on your first 3 dates, for instance. But you want to just do a pulse check and ask him, for instance, so for how long did you live apart? Or where do you live now? And for how long did you live there? And was it difficult to live apart after having lived together and so on? Ask him a few questions, not only to get his concrete answer, but also to find out how does he feel about it. You can see in his face, you can see how he talks about it. Is he relaxed about it? Or is there still some emotional attachment to her? And of course, you can ask him straight up, why are you not divorced yet? And then see how he responds to that. This is definitely something you want to ask face to face. I'm not sure I would ask it in the dating app, but ask it face to face and get curious about that. Try to listen to what he says, but also the communication he is giving you in between the lines, how he feels or what he looks like when he talks about it. So if there's just the slightest doubt that he might not be emotionally free yet, and that could even be the case if he tells you that they were more like friends for a long time, but then he just moved out of the house or the apartment 1 month ago. Even in that situation, I think you want to let him have a little bit more time, at least 3 to 4 months living by himself, ideally maybe 6 months, before he can actually be ready for a new relationship, even if he tells you that they were not actually a couple, that they were more like roommates. And you can ask yourself, does it depend on how many years they were married? And it would be natural to say, yes, the longer they were together, the more difficult it is to separate. But that's not necessarily the case. Again, they could have taken a long time to get to the decision to separate and actually be quite clear about it, and then they move on relatively fast. And it could also be that they have been married for a short time and they got divorced, and they actually have a lot more emotional attachment to each other than if they were married for 15, 20 years. So the reason I say that even if they were emotionally separated and they moved away 3 to 4 months ago, I would still be a little bit careful, is that you just get this attachment to each other. You do that in all normal long-term relationships, whether you are married or not. You do get an attachment to each other, and especially if you live together and you share your daily life together. And so you can be at a stage where emotionally you feel that you're done with the other person and you agree that the relationship has to end and it is the best solution. But still, when you then do the act of separating, where you move apart and you separate your stuff and you start living separately, that's a different phase that you enter. So even if you kind of think that you are over the other person and you already processed the grief when you were inside the relationship, that already there you felt a lot of sadness about realizing that it was not going to work out and you probably have to separate. That's very normal. You get a lot of this grief already inside the relationship. Still, what happens when you then do the act and you do separate, there's a new phase. It becomes more real and you go through another level of grief. And what I have also seen several times is that even if you've been separated for years and it's all clear that this was the right decision and you have your separate lives and you're moving on, the moment the divorce goes through, there is again another level of grief. There's another level of emotions or layer of emotions that you need to process in order to finally be completely on the other side and be free. And so therefore, we might trick ourselves to think that we are over someone, but not actually really be that, because there is still some kind of bond to the other person, whether that is emotional or legal or sharing the same address and so on. So I definitely would, first of all, give it some time, let him live apart and away from the ex-partner for a while. And then also, if you actually enter into a relationship with someone who's not yet divorced, that the moment the divorce goes through, there might be some sadness, there might be a new layer of grief that this person has to process. And then try to just listen to your own gut feeling when he talks about her? What comes up? Do you sense that he's still not ready for someone new? Does it seem like he's attached, even if he's attached in a negative way, like he talks about her with annoyance, with anger, or frustration? That's also not a really good sign. So I also want you to pay attention to your thoughts and feelings about him, because this element of someone being potentially not available, if that somehow makes you feel this kind of scarcity where you just want him even more, then you want to pay attention to that and you want to take a look at that, because that could be a pattern in your life that you actually feel more attracted or more drawn to someone that you kind of can't have, or that you maybe cannot have. And you want to be careful with that, because it could really set you up in a trap that is not really healthy for you. You could also have the opposite situation where you feel much more alert because you just came out of a long-term relationship that was actually also a marriage. And if you have this alertness, you feel that, okay, he is in this zone of early separation, like before the 3 months mark, and he just moved out his stuff from the flat, or she moved out the stuff from the flat, or whatever happened, and he still hasn't found his own ground in this, then you might be even more alert. And that is not a great situation to enter a connection with, feeling this alertness. I need to be careful. I need to watch what's going to happen. Because what happens then is our brain is going to try to look for evidence or signs that maybe he isn't really ready yet. And once we look for that, we find it. We find small signs here and there, and we interpret the things that we see as signs that he's not actually ready. So you want to be careful with even starting a connection when you have this feeling. If you have a gut feeling that he might not be ready, I would advise to not enter the connection then, not start something with him, because this gut feeling is going to play against you. So I hope this helps. I know it's not a really clear answer, but I also think that the situation is not clear. It really depends on a lot of things. Then I had another question from a young woman. She says that she's a 50-year young woman, and what she's really worried about there is that other people are going to think that she's over the hill. She's over the hill, it's too late, you're never going to find somebody because you're too old. And so I asked her, then what do you think yourself? Do you think you're over the hill? And of course, she doesn't feel like that, but she worries that other people might think so. Okay, and so you could say, okay, what does that even matter? Is your own opinion that's important? Is what you think about yourself that's important? And that's true. It's important what we think about ourselves. But if it's even a worry that comes up, if you have even this in your mind, they're going to think I'm over the hill. They're going to think I'm too old to meet someone. And other people's opinions or potential opinions about that seem to matter to you. Then it could be a sign that part of you actually worries that it might be true. There's a part of you who might judge yourself or think, maybe I am over the hill, maybe it is too late, maybe they are right. And that is what triggers you. That is what makes you feel that it's a big problem if other people think that. Because if you were like 100% sure, I'm of course not over the hill, I'm in my best age, life begins at 50, I look great, I feel great, I have an interesting life, I have a lot of experience, I have a lot of confidence, you wouldn't worry about if some other people think that you're over the hill. So I think when we worry about other people thinking something about us, it's because there's a tiny little part of ourselves that tends to have the same opinion or worry that it might be true. So you want to get curious about that and really ask yourself, do I fully believe that I am not over the hill? Do I fully believe that it's possible for me to find love? Or is there a part of me who actually worries that maybe they are right, maybe I am too old to find love? And that you want to challenge, you want to question that. And there's plenty and plenty and plenty of examples of people finding love after 50. You can just Google celebrities after 50 who found love. I haven't done that actually, but it's something you could try. There are many examples, and you can probably also look in your own friendship circle and your family and think of people who met each other in a high age. After having had another relationship, the second time around they meet someone and maybe they marry, maybe they don't, but they meet someone and they could be over 50. You also want to maybe get a little bit curious about why is it a problem if other people think something that you don't agree with. I mean, we cannot agree with everyone in this world. And some people are for sure gonna have thoughts about you that you don't agree with. That's just the way it is. Some people are gonna have really high positive thoughts about you that you might think that's almost too much. I don't agree with them either. And some people are gonna be exactly aligned with you and have the same thoughts that you have about yourself and agree with. And other people are gonna judge you and have negative thoughts and where you don't agree with them. And there's really nothing we can do about that. We can't go into everyone's head and change their thoughts about us. Sometimes we just have to let them be wrong. Allow people to be wrong about you. And then remember what you know to be true about yourself. And then we can also ask ourselves, okay, well, what is the background if someone, for instance, have this thought that you are over the hill? What could be the reason they think that? Why are they judging you? What is behind their own judgment? Because usually, if we judge others, it's usually because there's something we don't accept in ourselves. So there could be other people who think about themselves that they are over the hill, or that they might be over the hill when they turn 50. So it's really their opinion about themselves that they are projecting to you. And maybe some actually have this thought, I wish I was like her. I wish I was courageous and put myself out there and look for love again. But I don't because I think I'm too old. I think I'm over the hill. If they have these thoughts about themselves, they could be judging you as well. And in reality, what is behind the judgments is actually jealousy and maybe a little bit admiration. Maybe they actually think, I wish I had her courage. I wish I had her courage, but I don't because I hold myself back. I judge myself. I'm over the hill. I'm too old to find love. So it's actually quite interesting to dive into this whole complex of what it means to us that other people might judge us. And I have an idea that you might not even know for sure that other people are judging you. Maybe it's just something in your mind you imagine that they might be judging you. But why do you imagine that? Are you judging yourself? Are you judging them? Do you think they are judging themselves? Try to get curious about this and decide, you know what? The only person's opinion that really, really matters to you is yourself. And of course, you can find a lot of people out there who agree with you and who align with you. And those are the people that are good for you, that are true to you as friends, as girlfriends, as someone supporting you, or potentially a partner as well. So I think you don't personally seem to worry so much about being 50, but you seem to worry about what other people think. So I want to encourage you to surprise them all. Show them that life is not over at 50. Lots of fun stuff can happen, and you're still a catch at 50. Go out there and blow their mind and meet someone amazing and let everyone see that it's possible. And then you can inspire them to also do the same if they sit there and think they are over the hill. So the last question I have received is about profile photos. And this is one of the topics that I also find really interesting because I have several experience with clients that they also find it really difficult to find good profile photos or to take profile photos. And it's difficult to see ourselves in a photo. It's difficult to take photos of ourselves. Many of us find it actually really difficult to take selfies. I know there's a lot of people out there who do it all the time and who feel completely okay with it. But there's also a really big group of people who had to get used to it. I had to get used to it. I was not comfortable in the beginning with taking selfies. And we are always much more critical towards our own photos than anyone else's. and we're more critical towards our own photos than we are towards other people's photos. So I want to say, if you don't have any good photos of yourself, you don't actually have to take selfies. You don't have to do it yourself. You can ask a friend to help you. You could, for instance, go out with a friend. Either you go for dinner, you go for shopping, you go to a cafe, whatever. And then when you feel there's a really good atmosphere and you're relaxed and you're smiling and laughing, you take out your phone and you ask her, hey, can you please take some snapshots? I need a few for my profile. Just have a really good friend that you feel safe with, you feel relaxed with. Take a few pictures of you, because that's where you also have the best confidence and you have the most natural smile, you have the glimpse in your eyes, and you can have some really great photos like that. But you can also take them yourself. If you want to open a profile today or tomorrow and you don't have time to set up an appointment with a friend and you don't have the photos, you can do it by taking selfies. And what I have found is actually taking selfies is in itself something that can give you transformation. Because if you feel that it's very uncomfortable to take selfies, I would say that is the situation where you want to do it. You want to overcome that challenge. And how do we get comfortable taking selfies? We don't sit and wait until we feel comfortable with it. We don't necessarily go and do a haircut and buy a lot of makeup or something like that to get comfortable with it. It's actually the other way around. We take the selfies, and the more we take, the more we get comfortable with it. By doing the challenge, by jumping into it, you become better and better at being comfortable with it. Your brain is getting more and more used to it, and it feels less dramatic. And if you want to take on that as a challenge to build more confidence, I would say try to do 10 selfies every day. And you have to do it from different positions, different angles. Do 10 every day. And then you give yourself permission to delete all of them, and you give yourself permission to look at none of them before end of the week. You could say, okay, I'm going to take 10 photos every day, and I will do them from different angles and with different light and different way of putting my hair and so on. And then by the end of the week, I will have 70 photos, and I will look at all of them, and then I will delete the ones I don't like. And I have permission to delete everything if I want. On the other hand, you could also say, okay, out of the 70 photos I take, I'm going to choose 3 that I want to use in the profile. So that's actually not even such a high hit rate, right? 3 out of 70. You will most likely find 3 that you like. And you can also just decide, I'm not going to do more than that. I'm going to do 10 per day. And by the end of the week, I will choose 3. And if I don't like any of the 70 photos, I will take the 3 that I dislike the least. And then you take a look at them and you get used to looking at yourself. And I promise you, it will be easier every time you do this. The way we feel when we look at a photo of ourselves is very much an expression of how we feel about ourselves. Whether we look at ourselves from a very harsh and critical standpoint, finding all the arrows that we don't like in our face or in our hair or whatever, or whether we look at ourselves as we would look at a friend, with compassion, with love, and with a lot of accept. The things that we accept in our friends and that we think are charming and so on are typically the things that we don't like with ourselves and that we feel very critical towards. And if you have a lot of that, you definitely have something to work on. And doing the selfie challenge here is actually a very easy way to not only grow and change the way you see yourself and build some confidence, but also have a lot of thoughts surface up. So when you do this, you can write down all the thoughts you have about yourself, and that will give you a lot of material to work on. And if you feel it's difficult, I want to say you're definitely not alone. A lot of women find it very, very difficult to take selfies and just having photos taken of themselves with the purpose of putting them into a profile. And so I want you to really see it as a work in progress. Like when you choose some photos you put on your profile, you don't have to think of it as these are the photos that are going to be on my profile forever and ever. It can just be the beginning. It's just to get started. And it's not that I want you to change your photos all the time. I just want you to feel more relaxed about the photos. It's not a big deal. If you feel you could have done some better photos, you will just do some better photos next week, and then you change 1 or 2 of them. It's a work in progress. It's a dynamic thing, and you don't have to get it right on the first take. You just have to put something out there. And you can also, if you feel like it, you can also have a friend look at the photos that you choose. Out of these 70, you can choose maybe 10, and you can have a friend look at them and ask them what they think. Because sometimes when you hear someone mentioning something they like about you, then maybe you can actually open your eyes to that as well and see, oh yeah, that's right. That's actually true. I have a cute smile, or this photo here brings out the light in my eyes. So I want to say in general about photos for your profile, it's really not about how you look. It's not about being pretty in a classical sense. What it is all about is having a connection with the camera. So being approachable, smiling to the camera, having eye contact in the camera, that is so much more important than being perfect. Now, this kind of photo where you can see there's a person who's just really excited, there's a person who's joyful, there's a person who's very positive, and it doesn't matter if we can see a tiny little bit of insecurity or shyness, or if we can see that your hair is not perfect, it doesn't matter. It's the confidence, it's the joy that radiates out of such a picture. That is what he's going to find attractive. Not that you have the perfect makeup or the perfect hair. And those kind of photos where we can see the face and we can see the eyes, those are really, really important. And my experience from working with different clients that have very different profile photos is that the profiles where you have some photos where you show your face, you smile at the camera, you are relaxed, you have eye contact and so on, those kind of profiles have much more success than the profiles where you are showing what you are capable of in terms of climbing a mountain or diving with dolphins or something like that. That's all very impressive, but it's almost like you're trying to prove that you can do a lot, and it's like performance photos, which is, do maybe maximum 1 or 2 of these and then show your face on the others. Connect with the camera, connect with the person on the other side. That is so much more important than showing what you're capable of. And it will give you much more dates if you do that. So this is what I had to say about the photos right now. I have a lot more to say about photos because they are really important, but you can listen to another episode. I can put in the show notes my reference to another episode because I have created an episode where I talk about how to put together a good profile, and part of this is also what are the kind of photos you want to put in your profile. So this was all what I had for you today, and I hope that you found it useful, because I know that if one of you has a question, then of course many of you have the same question, but you just haven't asked. So I want to thank the women who asked me these questions, and I want to encourage you all to keep sending me questions. I will collect them bit by bit, and once in a while I will do a Q&A episode, because I really think that is the most important thing about this podcast, is to give you some advice that you can use, give you something that you are looking for and that you are wondering, what am I to do in this situation, or how can I change my mindset around this, and so on. So please don't hold back. Just send me an email, send me a DM on Instagram, or send me an email if you are on my list, and ask me all the questions you have, and I'll collect them all together and I'll do another Q&A episode when I have enough questions to talk about it for a whole episode. So thank you everyone who asked these questions, and I will be back again in a week, hopefully with a more clear voice. And in the meantime, have fun and enjoy dating. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.